You're about to go deep with Dan.
Michael, it's good to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of time coming. I've been watching everything you've been doing with Spacetime Movie, and I know we met back in the day, Alpha MSG premiere.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, which 2015?
2015, I think we were trying to work that out before the pod started.
So yes, long time coming.
Yeah, and so Spacetime is your debut feature film?
That's right. So that's my first as director, co-writer and producer.
Yeah. Geez, that's a lot to take on, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but it's the most fun. Hard, but fun.
Yeah, it's hard slog, right? And so why don't you tell us a little bit about Spacetime Movie?
Spacetime it's a science fiction film. It's about the accidental invention of time travel. A group of scientists are developing an engine that's essentially to make interstellar travel possible, instantaneous interstellar travel possible. And when they first test it, they discover that it can not only bend space, but it can also bend time. And so the project is shut down and they lose their financing. And so it's all about this group of scientists that they think they may have discovered time travel, and it's about them trying to rebuild the machine, but without financing this time. And so turning to the criminal underworld and trying to rebuild this device and test it and see if they have indeed invented time travel.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome. And so where did what's the attraction of space-time and this kind of, this narrative for you?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons it's attractive. The immediate one is it's just so much fun to play with time travel. Yeah. And Adam Harmer, who I co-wrote the film with, he and I have been working together for years, pretty much since we met at university. And the whole time we just have always talked about time travel films and our different takes on time travel and, wouldn't it be cool if the rules were like this, and what would you do with it and how would that work? And so over the years of us writing other short films together, it was just something we always came back to. Yeah. And so it's exciting just to talk about, wouldn't this be cool and that be cool, and kick around ideas in that way. And then at a certain point, we both were writing short film scripts, or Adam was writing one as there was potentially a TV series that included time travel, and I was writing something else that was either could have been a short, could have been a feature, and we were bouncing back and forth between those, and then realized Adam basically came to me and said, "Hey, what if we combine the two ideas? Because we've essentially were working on something that had the same rules of time travel." Yeah. And so said, why don't we take, what I've got, and that's the second act, and then take what you've got and make that the third act, and then we'll come up with a first act to sort of kick it all off. Yeah. And so, just sort of, it kind of wrote itself. Not that it was necessarily easy, but just we were so excited by the possibility of this concept and all the sort of fun things you can do, and you start figuring out the best characters to explore the idea and figuring out as you're writing what their challenges will be in and around this. And we just landed on something that, the way we described the film as Breaking Bad meets Back to the Future, in that you've got scientists dealing with the criminal underworld and trying to pull off heists and steal things and whatnot.
Navigate that world,
but with the fun of Back to the Future. So that was just immediately so appealing to me. So I think that's the chief appeal of the idea. And then on top of that, once we realized that it was about this group that essentially were doing it on their own, it very quickly dawned on us that, this is about independent filmmaking in a way. This is about a group setting out to do their own thing. And so I think it was particularly appealing to us because we could see so much of what our friends, so many people we know are doing. And there was that very relatable, this is about risking it all, going out on your own, trying to do something outside the system. Yeah. So that kind of fed the beast as well. That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's quite cool. I mean, obviously, as a creative as well, you're kind of writing yourself or your own emotions or your experiences or the people around your experiences, or something happens in front of you and you're like, I can use that in a script one day. That's kind of the thing, right? And for it to be so closely relatable to what you're doing, I can see how that would have just pushed you on further. And it's weird how it all just fits together though, isn't it, right? With your friends, both doing the same thing, similar premises, and why don't we make a film together? I mean, that's a ballsy thing in itself, not just making the film, but doing it with someone else, and having that kind of, cherishing that baby that you're trying to put out in the world and trying to not just be your vision, but be someone else's and be able to combine that vision. I mean, that's, it's a hard thing to do even in a short film, right? Never alone a feature film and that kind of approach. So you've been good friends with him for quite a while.
Yeah. Adam's like, and honestly, like I feel this way, like generally you want to collaborate and you want to it's great to have someone to bounce ideas off. And obviously, like I know my ideas are better when Adam's working with me, and I like to think the same. Like I think we always arrive at the best work when we're writing together. But I just think that's it's such a writing in particular is such a difficult process, and like you do have that like, is this good? Is this terrible? And having someone to bounce like, oh no, that's a good idea. I think this is good. Is a very, I think that's key to getting anything done. But yeah, like you are attracted to people that have the same creative instincts, and that want to see, the film come to life in the same way. And I know there's plenty of things in Space-Time that he would have done differently if he was directing. And there are plenty of, like, and again, I think that's true for anyone involved in the film. Like everybody has their idea, the cast, cinematographer, other producers, like everybody has an opinion on what something should be. And it's just trying to get as close to the same kind of like understanding what we're all going for and make it the best it can be.
Yeah, and that's quite an undertaking as a director, isn't it? And a leader when you've got that many people to so many different energies and entities around you to like trying to harness that all in and control it somewhat, but let it be free in a creative space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like on the one hand, you are so lucky to be doing it. Like I never, even on the really hard days, I'm always so aware of just how lucky we are to be doing this, like, and to have people showing up every day. Whether it's like our producers, so Adam's one of the producers and Jai Hogg is the third producer, sort of rounding out our team at the top. And like you are constantly aware of like how lucky you are to have the people that do just keep showing up and keep supporting, and especially because this has been a very long post-production. But even from the shoot to post all the way through, you don't take that for granted that people are just constantly backing and pushing and believing. And then at the same time, you do have to still remember that you're making a movie, and at the end of the day, like that is what we're all turning up for, is to make something that really works and trying to keep your eye on, making the best thing you can, and also remembering to be grateful for the help you have, because you can't do it by yourself. Like like you can write by yourself, you can paint by yourself, but like when it comes to filmmaking, you need everybody. You are just a guy talking to himself if you don't have people showing up.
It's a pretty boring film.
Yeah.
That's 100% it, isn't it? And it's finding those people and getting the right people around you from like the crew side of things, and then you build from there, right? And it's just that you audition the people, I'm sure you did, or maybe you had people in mind that you wanted to bring on as cast regardless.
It was a mixture of both. And
it's because you can trust those people to do the job that you want to do, and it's a process, isn't it? But it's one huge collaborative process, and you don't know what it's going to be until it's kind of finished, right? It changes so many different times. I mean, you can have everything set out. You're like, it's going to be this. I've got the shot list. I've got everything storyboarded. You start shooting and you're like, I didn't think it was going to go like that. And then, you're constantly tweaking. Like, what is that for you for a director? Because you got to move on the fly, right? You got to think so much on the fly, but you got to be thinking far ahead of how it's going to cut together and what's going to make sense. And you can't just grab all the footage because you don't have the time for that and the money, especially when you're doing it as an independent filmmaker, right? And even if you do have a budget and some backing, it's still in your mind, isn't it, to a certain extent?
Definitely.
So how do you approach all that when you're doing it? Or how did you find, you might have feeled your way through the process, right? Being your first feature as well. So how does that all go for you?
Well, I certainly on set, figured out very quickly that we weren't going to have time to do everything exactly as planned. And we had storyboarded a large portion of the film and shot list, and it really was like the first night I went, I don't think we're going to have time. And we really were aiming for typically 10 to 12 pages of script a day, and a lot of like we would do like maybe 3 or 4 scenes per day, and some would be action and some would just be lots of dialogue and all the rest, and almost every single shot had some kind of visual effect in it. And so, I definitely got to a point where it was really only what's essential. Like you couldn't really cut a lot of scenes in a different way, only because I only had the one, like it was covered in this one way. This is how it's going to go together. There's not going to be a lot of options, and just having to trust that this will work. So a lot of it was going on instinct. I do think that like a big part of the fun of shooting and then getting to put the edit together afterwards was just being like, oh, thank goodness it worked, and knowing that the instinct had been good. Because on set, you don't really know. You know that you're trying to capture a feeling. I try to map out the film sort of in my head, and I'll sort of listen to music and think about, okay, this is the feeling that I am going to be trying for on set. And then when it comes together in the cut, and then that sort of guides you, you remember like, okay, this is going to feel fast, or this will feel slow, or this will feel sad, or whatever it is, the goal of a scene sort of tonally. And so I was always able to sort of come back to like, well, am I feeling that? Yes, I am. Great. That at least means we're ticking that primary box.
That makes sense.
But a lot of it really was just making it up as you went, and just going on instinct. And again, turning to the people around you and getting their input and their ideas as much as possible. And I think you can just feel when it's working. Actually, one of my favorite nights, even though it was very difficult, was our mutual friend Jeremy. He had a small cameo in the film, and he played a dealer in a scene underneath the Story Bridge. And I think the sequence is probably made up of maybe four or 5 shots, and that really was just getting everyone there and feeling it out, and just getting that like, right, what's most important, when does it feel fast, when does it slow, when does the tension build, and just sort of blocking it out, having a very clear idea of what I wanted it to feel like and the kind of shots I'd like. But you really just, you're there, you're working with your cinematographer and camera team, and working with the cast, and just placing everyone and going with what feels good and feels exciting. And and then that's really it. Like you are ultimately, you do want the audience to love your film, but you are making it for yourself, I think, first. I do think if you are excited by it, you've at least got one audience member on board. And hopefully, if you're excited by it, other people will be too.
That's the main thing, isn't it? Like you being excited by the project or the proposition or anything that you take on, right? It's, because that shows in the work. Like if you're not enjoying yourself, it really does show on camera as an actor and whoever's doing whatever they're doing.
Well, and we have to dedicate so much time and energy. If we're not liking it, then what are we doing? Like it's years of your life potentially. It's such a major thing. So I think that listening to that voice of, this is exciting to me and it is making me happy, then I know that
you're on the right path.
On the right track. Exactly. That's right.
I mean, I go over that constantly, with a lot of things. Just going, is this really, like, I can see that it's going to the overall goal, but am I really enjoying this part of it, and what can I tweak or make better, or how can I make this more enjoyable for myself? Or it's like auditions that maybe you're not so attracted to that character or what have you, or it's a TVC audition or whatever it is, and it's, you got to find the fun in it, don't you? If you're not having fun, then what's the point?
Oh, definitely. And like, that's something I warn I warn actors all the time now. Like, if I am loving something, I will laugh. Like, I'll be behind the monitor. It can be like a deathly serious scene, and I'll still like find joy in the fact that it's working and it's exciting. And I will be laughing, and like, I swear to God, it's not.
It's not your performance.
This is good. If I'm laughing, then that means we are in the sweet spot. This is really working.
You're having fun with it, right?
Exactly.
And that goes down from the top too. As a director and one of the head guys on set, people are looking up to you for direction or what have you. And it's like, if you're having a good time and you're in a good mood, then it's just going to roll on to everybody else.
I hope so. Yeah. And like Space Time shoot was impossibly difficult. Like we really bit off. I won't say more than we could chew, because in the end, we shoot it, but we really were shooting for the stars. And as everyone does, and I see this all the time in Queensland productions. Like it's so impressive when you just see like everyone is going for lots of locations, lots of scenes, big casts, like real movies, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were doing the same, and that was our goal, was to try and make it, you know, look like the films we like to see at the cinema. But yeah, it means that when you don't have backing behind you and you're paying for, like, certainly the shoot, that was all just us financing it ourselves. You are just every day, like, this impossible mountain has to be climbed, and you know somehow you will, but yeah, you definitely feel it.
Yeah.
There were some very tough, very long days.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, you're going to war, aren't you? Almost like a certain extent of the creative art of war.
Yeah.
You're just, it's a battleground, and you're constantly putting out fires, aren't you? Little things here and there that no one knows anything about. It's like after talking to Jeremy after like doing a feature, and there's like all this other stuff going on in the background that you wouldn't have even had an idea was going on, that you're putting out before you even getting to set. And equipment, and if you're hiring equipment or this and that, and something breaks, God forbid, and then you got to,
It's and you never know what it will be. And I was again so lucky to have both Adam and Jai as my producers, because I really was able during that shoot to say, please find a way to fix this. I just can't stop and think about it. Like, this thing that's broken on tomorrow's shoot, or this piece of gear that someone's dropped, or being able to pass that along and have them shoulder that was critical to being able to get it over the line. Because you end up having all these other challenges on your shoulders between performance, or this isn't working, or that prop didn't turn out the size I had expected, so now I've got to rethink how we're going to shoot it, because it's going to be slightly different.
Right,
you never know what the problem is going to be. And it's such a truth of filmmaking. If you think something's going to be hard, it's going to be 10 times harder. If you think it's going to be easy, it's probably going to be the hardest thing you've had to do. Nothing's easy.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. Yeah, it's definitely that way. And that's, I mean, it's part of delegating, isn't it, from the top? Like, if you got those people around you that you can trust, I mean, that's it's paramount when you're going into filmmaking. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm so lucky. I don't really, like, sometimes I stop and think about the people that I get to work with, and I was like, God, how did I meet them? Like, what chance events happened that I went to a thing, or they turned up, or they were this friend's roommate, and we've just been working together, over all these years between short films to now with Space Time. So grateful to have the people that are as into the stuff I'm into, and also have, like, they get on the train really quickly, and want to solve the problems with you, and want to make sure we get as much as we can in place so that it can be the best thing it can be.
Yeah, just emotionally invested, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome when you can attract people like that, and it's so important and so vital through life to have people, no matter what you're going through, to have those kind of people around you, because you're constantly pushing each other up, aren't
Definitely.
you?
Oh yeah, not just filmmaking. Of course. You want to surround yourself with those kind of people.
It's very important. But especially when it comes to filmmaking too. So I mean, that's a lot of what I was excited to talk to you about with this film as well, is that you did take a big undertaking on, right? A sci-fi film is hard to shoot, regardless, even if you have a big budget or what have you. Your first feature film, independently doing it. I mean, what were some of the big challenges with that? I mean, because you have got visual effects. There's a lot of green screen, there's CGI in there. Like, how did you guys go about it and approach it?
Well, the truth is, the approach was a dangerous one, in that we had a good idea of what we were capable of. So Justin, who's our visual effects supervisor and has pretty much done almost every visual effect in the film himself, we knew where we were in terms of what, like, how talented he was. Like, we knew what he was capable of. We knew it was going to be fantastic, and that the beast really was the volume. And so we had just this huge amount of visual effects work. And so the approach, maybe foolishly in retrospect, but again, it's now worked out, was we just started. We just went, right, we're just going to shoot the movie, and then we're going to pull together, figure out how many shots we've got to do, and then just start doing them. And so the greatest difficulty of the film, and the reason for the post being as long as it has been, it hasn't been that we just went to post and couldn't figure out the edit and everything. It's been, every single day has been work, and it's just been, you're just biting off a little bit, one piece at a time, and before you know it, years have passed, but you're halfway through, and then you just keep going. And that side of things, it was just start like. To change my metaphor from biting off pieces, it's more you swimming out into the ocean and you know that land is in the distance. You can't see it. You can only see the horizon, but you know there's land on the other side and you just have to swim and keep swimming and keep swimming. And at a certain point you get to it and you look back and you can't see the land behind you anymore. You're like, okay, well, can't see the land that was behind us, can't see the land that's ahead. Just have to keep going forward and trust that it's going to be there. And that is what these years have been.
Yeah.
It's just been a gradual, slowly getting to see the destination come into focus and get closer and closer. And now finally to be there, it's quite a feeling.
Yeah. So what parts were a lot? I mean, obviously the part. It's hard to. I don't want to obviously ask too much to give away too much, guys. As you know, the film hasn't been released yet. We're putting that out now. It's in the works, but it's finished, right?
It's finished.
From the man.
It's finished. It's coming very soon.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as we know, everyone will know. You will not be able to escape that information. When we've made it public.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah. I mean, there is a bit of a teaser trailer out, right, that people can check out.
Yeah. So we because one of the things that really helped us, and it was also just a lot of fun. I've always appreciated when filmmakers put out behind the scenes content as they're making the film and sort of show. The making of. That's I appreciated your podcast as much to do because I love hearing about the process and hearing directors talk and writers and actors and everybody sort of talk about the process. Because on the one hand, it's it's great to just see how other people do it. It's inspiring because just the fact that they're doing it. But it's also nice to hear the challenges we're having are consistent with the challenges everyone else is.
Not alone.
The people I admire have the same challenges. So we put out a lot of behind the scenes content and did video diaries and things like that all through the production and post. And then once we realized, because we never wanted to repeat ourselves, once we realized we didn't know when the end was going to be, we just knew the volume of work was great and we had to keep pushing through. We kind of slowed down on all of that. So we decided to put out, once we reached the end, we decided to put out a little mini, half trailer, half behind the scenes thing, just for everybody that had been following us along the way, because we had gone quiet in terms of talking about the film publicly, which is really we just had our heads down working and didn't really
doing the work.
And there wasn't much to show, and so it was nice to be able to come back and say, look, here's it's not quite a trailer, but it's a little glimpse of some of the work and the scale, and especially for anyone that worked on the film. Almost every shot that's in that mini trailer is something that had a green screen in it that's now been replaced. So it was a cool way to sort of say we're complete by showing. Remember all those days we spent looking at a big green square? You can now see what's there. So it was pretty cool, and it's nice too just to have something that. It sort of feels like a little celebration of crossing the finish line.
For everybody to see a little taste of what you worked so hard on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Well, and saying that, so that's how, I mean, you've got the, what do you call the gateway to, that.
There was the machine is the engine.
Stargate SG-40 kind of thing, but it's new age, obviously.
Exactly. So it's actually not a gate, and this is one of the fun things that I guess is in store for people to discover about the film. It's not a jump gate. It's a machine that generates this energy that makes the time travel possible. So we call it the engine because it begins life story-wise. It's basically meant to be like the engine on the back of a Star Destroyer in Star Wars. The big round piece that makes the ship able to go into hyperspace. Yeah. They're basically building the technology that will make that possible on a future spaceship. So it's not a jump gate, but it's interesting. It's such a it's a lot of fun for all of us seeing how people respond to things before they have context and assumptions that people make, because we all do it. I watch trailers for movies and then make assumptions and I wonder if that's that, and that looks like it might be this kind of machine or that kind of thing. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people react, because I think things again, it's a movie called Space Time. It's about time travel and jumping across things. So everyone assumes, that's like a Stargate. And I said, no. And I can't wait for you to see what it actually is and how it works, because it's quite different. I think we've got something quite original in terms of how we approach the technology side of it all.
Yeah. So is there any eventual space travel in the film?
I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like I'm asking a question that's not going to get an answer. But
I'll say this. I think where they go is pretty, it's a lot of fun, and I think you'll have a good idea of why we spent so long on visual effects.
Yeah.
With how they use the machine and how that all comes together.
Okay, cool.
But at the same time, I also hope that no one notices the visual effects.
Yeah.
You know? And that's something that's nice too. There's so many visual effects shots where there's just a small effect that's all about making some detail of the world feel real. And I really hope it just feels like, oh, they must have just had that on set.
Yeah.
And just had the money to have that kind of prop or that kind of set piece or what have you.
Yeah.
So hopefully not noticing it, but yes, the adventure they have, that's a big spoiler. I won't say exactly.
Look, you sold me when you said adventure. That's all I was asking for.
Good,
I just wanted to know there was a little. I mean, I love sci-fi films, sci-fi adventure, thrillers, and that's me in a nutshell. Like that, my favorite. I mean, I love crime as well, and thrillers and actions and all this, and there's comedies as well. But I think probably the more I look at it, sci-fi adventure, sci-fi action thrillers are like my. They're my bread and butter. That's what I love. That's my go-to for the adventure and the thrill of everything that's going on and the excitement. Yeah,
definitely. Well, and I think that you get again, I love films of all genres, and I think I don't have a favorite genre, because really I think you can have good films and bad films in
all
any
genres. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but sci-fi, there is something about having a core premise that is interesting and complicated, and then getting to take real normal people and then put them into, all right, how do they deal with this otherworldly device or what have you? And I think there's so much potential in sci-fi, because you get to introduce an element that's totally foreign to us and then see what the real world implications are on real people.
And it raises the stakes for the characters, therefore it raises the stakes and the interest for the film and the viewer. Yeah.
And then you get to have fun action scenes and adventure scenes and all the rest of it, and I think that's something to elaborate more on an earlier question too, when it came to sort of the visual effects and the approach. The other key component to our approach beyond how we tackled the volume of work was just, we also didn't, again, this might be unwise, but I think it's a better film for it. We didn't curb our approach. Like if the instinct was, well, let's do a big action scene here, we just did it. We went for it. We weren't going, but that will be hard. That will mean adding another 100 visual effects. Oh, let's cut it. It really was, what would be most exciting? Pretend you've got unlimited resources in the writing, then try and find a way to execute it. And that's really one. It got us into some trouble with our post, but it definitely made for the best film. And that was the wonderful thing, getting offset and then putting the cut together and getting to look at it and be really feel like, oh wow, we really did make the ultimate like ultra low budget DIY big film.
And you made it work.
I made it work. And so that same love for sci-fi and adventure films and all the rest of it, like, a very big Spielberg fan, wanting to sort of not feel like we were doing a low budget film, trying to treat it like it was a big budget film, even if it did have a low budget. And that's, I think what's allowed us to not only have a good film at the end, I think, again, you tell me when you've seen it, but to have a film that we're proud of at the end, but also having been able to stick with it for as long as we have. I think if we had made it fit its scale like more deliberately, I don't know if I'd have been excited by it all these years. Like, it's actually, I will talk to people and I was like, God, like how are you not sick of this film yet? And I genuinely still love it, like, because every step of the way we're putting another cool piece in place. Like every day is, another awesome thing that's been in our heads for all this time is finally realized.
And put that there.
Cool.
Like, because you've got obstacles and challenges along the way, right? To keep testing you.
Definitely. Yeah.
And that's why it creates the excitement, and it's still there because you got constantly keep pushing yourself.
And all filmmaking is problem solving. Whether it's a creative problem, how do I make an audience feel this way? How do we make this location work with the blocking, like all the way down to how do we finance this? How do we get the resources to make this happen. It's all problem solving. And it's extremely rewarding when you solve a problem. I think those little wins along the way are great. We had so many ambitions for what the film would be, as every filmmaker does. You sort of like, oh, I would love it if it could have this, and I'd love it if it looked like this and had these things, and finding out the way to best get those different production values or whatever it is, and succeeding is extremely rewarding and invigorating, and it keeps you passionate about what you're doing and showing up the next day and carrying on with the work.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love it. So when you're doing the engine, right?
Yes.
That's so that is green screen.
Yes.
Yeah. And so are you putting more visual effects over that to juice the whole thing up, or is it how does that sort of work?
So specifically, the engine itself, that's it's meant to be like it's a real world prop, but that's just one of those things that financially we could never build this giant rotating machine with lights and energy and all the rest of it.
I mean, even, I've been down in some of the bigger productions and the big, green, blue screen, whatever you want to call it, down in studios and stuff like that. And they build huge sets, right? Like that look fantastic. But sometimes they are just like kind of the bones of like the object that you're trying to create, and everything else is just getting added on top of that. Like there's not much to a lot of it, like the real world thing built. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's right. Like for us, it was as much of the environment is there for real, and then typically, let's say it's one of the lab environments from the first engine, so the white room. The room's real. All of the monitors that everyone's interacting with, there's a real stand there, there's a real piece of perspex, but then we're adding the actual screen content on top in post.
Of course.
You've got a big green square at the back of the room, which is not even actually the full scale of the final engine. It's about a quarter of it. And so you've got that being replaced with this big, basically 3D model, and that's textured, lit, tracked into the scene, all this work to make it look like it's really there. And that's all pretty much Justin. And I have not made it easy because I've got Steadicam and I've got handheld, and the camera's constantly moving and it's just floating through the back, like in the background. And it did not make life easier, but I did follow what I felt to be the right photography style for the scene and to give us the feeling. So I think it had to be that way.
Trust in the vision.
Yeah, that's right. So all of that is created, and then beyond the sort of the hard surface effects of like the machine itself, you then have the time travel effects and the distortion effects and things that are a lot more abstract. The sort of trying to not give things away. That's sort of like hyperspace tunnel kind of look, which we looked at everything from 2001: A Space Odyssey with the sequence and moving through all the colors and shapes and shifting to the way when they jump into hyperspace in Star Wars and the stars all extend, and
I love that.
All of that. Looking at everything we could, all the films that we loved, to develop our own look for how these sort of what it looks like to be
and your
move through the machine and all of that. So a lot of different things to design, and then you just have because the film is set just a few years in the future, but we wanted to have a couple of things that have clearly advanced in technology, and just trying to if you see a phone, it's not an iPhone, it's where we think the iPhone might go in 5 years, or that sort of thing. So trying to have little details along the way that suggest, okay, this story is taking place just a little bit further in the future, not too far, not a completely different world, but also, okay, what's the natural timeline? And so, that also meant different types of effects to just have those little details be there and feeling like they're just part of the world.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like how many films kind of predict what's going to happen technologically in the future, right? It's like something the other day I was listening to a podcast, and they were bringing up the Jetsons cartoon.
Oh yeah.
And I think that was done maybe the 80s at a guess,
early, I think
or earlier
than that.
70s. But it's set in, I think it's like 2063 or something like that, right? And they've got tablets, jetpacks, flying cars is probably the only thing I think that wasn't achieved. Tablets, there was self. There was all these things, and they've all come to fruition, almost like exactly identical to what they had. And it's like, how, it makes you wonder.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's so fun to see where, what filmmakers and artists and writers sort of envision a future will be. And like, no one gets it completely right, but there are always these like basic ideas that somehow creep through that I think come from what would we like? What would make life easier? The one that I think about a lot is the way that Tom Cruise interacts with the screens in Minority Report.
I love
the idea of just swiping and the gestures and like enlarging things with your hands.
Yeah.
That is essentially the exact same thing that we do with modern touchscreens and phones.
Yeah.
Like that interaction. It's like, well, we don't have glowing things on our fingertips and it doesn't all float around us in a hologram, although that may be just around the corner.
Too far away, I don't think.
But that basic idea of like we like the point and click with a mouse or keyboard, like it works really well with us. But ultimately, I think the easiest interaction would be if we could just touch it and move it and make it bigger with our hands.
Throw that away.
And swipe it away and swipe it in. And
it's Iron Man. It's in, obviously Minority Report is a lot older, so that's quite awesome that they predicted that kind of thing. Yeah.
But that basic idea of how we want technology to behave, I think that's where you get it. And I guess, Jetsons is a great example. Maybe I was wrong. I spoke very confidently, like, no, it's earlier than the 80s. I might actually be wrong, but my impression is that's an earlier series. So if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, because it's
fact check.
It was color as well. So that's why I'm thinking it wasn't that much older.
Yeah.
So, it could be. It's pretty old. Yeah. But I'm sure maybe there was black and white ones before that. From what I remember, it was color. Yeah. So, I mean, that would have to be, it can't be that old. I think
my impression too, because of the design of it being such a 60s vision of the future, like that sort of retro future in my mind, I go to like end of the 60s, early 70s maybe. But anyway.
But was there color then? Was there?
Yeah, I mean, TV was black and white. So I guess, you're right. It's, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know the answer, only that I seemed to sound very confident when I said,
you were very confident.
It's earlier than that. I'm like,
is this stuff?
I do not know my Jetsons that well, unfortunately. I love the Jetsons growing up. But
I remember it now. It's quite amazing, actually. There wasn't a lot of shows around like that.
Yeah. No, well, it's fun. A lot of the, I guess the animated sitcom, it was really the legacy of what, The Simpsons then took the next step, and the idea of the family and the different challenges they have and all the rest of it. That's the beginnings of that and the Flintstones became the Simpsons,
and how successful are all those.
Yes, exactly.
Simpsons is still going.
Yeah.
God, they got to be on like
for better or worse.
I don't know. I haven't watched it in a long time, but it's got to be in like the 40th odd season or something. I would imagine,
it's
or
definitely
more.
Up there. Yeah. It's been a while since I've watched a new episode, but it's clearly got an audience.
People
still love it.
I know, because they bring it up. I'm like, is that still going? They're still making new ones. I mean, you could live on the reruns. I mean, how much of the Friends reruns and Seinfeld and things like that, still going?
Well, it's interesting. I do admire them for at least whether I like what The Simpsons has become or not. I do admire that the show has evolved over time and changed. Like when you run for that length of time, you have to respond to the things that are around you, right? Like you've got to look at Family Guy and that kind of cutaway comedy. Like I know The Simpsons started to introduce elements of that, and like it's interesting now that there's like maybe one day I will sit down and watch it from start to finish, because I like a lot of people, I love those first sort of 10 to 12 seasons. I think they're great. Grew up on those and come back to them regularly, reference them all the time. But it would be interesting to see. There aren't going to be too many shows that have reflected the time period they're in and stayed, like not gone away for 10 years and come back with a reunion. The Simpsons really existed all throughout this time from 90s to now.
Evolution of the characters,
and the style of comedy and the style of animation, and it would be a pretty good case study in how TV animation has evolved and what we were all into at the time, because it tends to reflect what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
art imitating life, life imitating art. Yeah.
What were we talking about?
I don't know. So, I brought up the Jetsons. I think we were talking about like the technology behind the engine, right? I think.
Oh yeah,
And
that's future visions of the future.
Yeah. And okay. Well, you answered my question with the green screen because I was really interested to know how you do that, because obviously my love of sci-fi as well, and you think of these things, that scripts that you want to write, and that's what was really cool. What you said before was you didn't handicap yourself into what you think you could do and trying to rack your brain of how you're going to figure out these problems before you start to shoot, which, I mean, let's face it, everyone takes different approaches probably to filmmaking, right? And a lot of the time, like on the bigger product, they have the time to do that and the money, and they figure the things out. But I mean, it's such a thing to admire that you kind of took that mindset on with it, and you're just like, we're just going to do it and figure it out as we go. I mean, that's a very ballsy move.
Well, and I, to be completely clear, like if I didn't have the people that I'm working with me, this would never have worked. So Justin, when we talk visual effects, is absolutely critical. And if he was like, actually, I'm not interested in this, the whole thing falls over. And that's true with Adrian, who's my composer. We've been working together for years now. And I have a real love of orchestral film scores and like to have that big orchestra sound, which is tough on a low budget just from a recording and assembling the musicians and whatnot point of view, but also having a composer that is happy to get in the weeds with me. I can be extremely annoying when it comes to like what I want, and like, no, we've really got to aim for this, and I want this sort of feeling and this sort of sound. I would just be totally lost at sea if I didn't have these people who were as excited about the same types of filmmaking, types of approach. Like I could not do that engine effect myself. Like that's not something I'm capable of.
There's not a lot of people that could pull that one off. I mean, there's no amount of YouTube videos online that you could look at to really you probably could if you had time.
Well, and I guess that's it. Like exactly what you just said before, where like you've got like your Hollywood productions, they can either throw money at a problem or time. And like that has been the overwhelming lesson of space-time is, and I think it's just sort of independent film in general. If you have a problem to solve and you don't have money, the only thing you can throw at it is time. And that is exactly what our post-production has been. It's like, well, if we had the money, we'd bring on more people, we'd outsource more, we'd what have you. And for us, it was like, we just have to keep throwing time at it. We just have to keep chipping away and getting closer and closer, which, Adam recently made the comment, and like it was very true. We have given the best years of our lives to this film in a lot of ways. Like this has been such an undertaking, but at the same time, like I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. Like I don't want to work in a bank. I don't want to be a lawyer. This is the most rewarding, enjoyable, exciting process. And so, finding the people that have the talent and ability and dedication who can also get as excited, I'll just, as long as I live, will never understand how lucky I was to find those people and to have them get on board, get behind me.
But they definitely would have shared the same, passion and enthusiasm, right, for the arts. So, you've attracted the right people and it happens. But so, I mean, so did you have, I know you spoke about it before, and it's okay if you don't want to really say too much about it, but you guys sort of put this on your own back to start off the shooting, and then did you get some more funding to do the post-production kind of thing?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So the shoot itself was financed primarily by Adam, Jai, and myself. We put our savings in, took out a big bank loan, and that was enough to get us almost all the way to the end of filming. And then Jai brought in a number of investors. We had one come on right at the end of the shoot, and we just cut together a little trailer because we were really happy with what we had, and cut together a little trailer. And then Jai pitched the hell out of it and was able to bring on an investor to give us that little bit extra because we knew we were going to go over schedule. We needed 2 more days, and we're like, all right, how do we pay for that? And so Jai was able to bring on someone to help fill in that gap. And then post-production really just became, okay, what's the next thing we need? We need this. Okay, how much will that cost? Right. And then it would be a combination, primarily Jai going out and finding someone, us having like at different stages, the cut of the film coming together, being able to show rough cuts or show scenes or show work in progress visual effects, and then using that to try and bring in more investment. And so we essentially ended up with a budget that was like 5 times high. Like what we shot with, we times that by 5 by the end through post. And a lot of that, it was people responding to the movie and being able to see the potential. And I think when we had the first rough cut come together, we had a real look at it, and it was that sort of moment of, okay, this is going to be extremely difficult. We know this is going to take a lot longer than any of us hoped, but we're not even truly sure how long it will take. And so it was either, right, do we say this is a first feature for most of us? For Jai, he's had several features at this point, but for Adam and I, this was our first. We're like, right, is this a first feature and we just have basic effects, just get it together, get it working and move on to the next one? Or have we got something special, in our opinion, that, you know, is worth really trying to elevate and finish to the same standard? Because you don't know when you set out to make a low budget feature, like, it might be terrible. You're not sure. And it really was that, like, oh, it's really worked out. Like, we've shown it to some audiences now and they care about the characters. And nobody hesitated. Everybody was like, no, we're going to do it properly. We're all in. Let's do it. And so, it became a process of raising more money to keep the train on the tracks. Just steadily putting pieces in place so we would have a need for something for visual effects, and it would be like, right, how much will that cost? Okay, let's find someone, let's raise that money, same with the score. We were very fortunate to have the Melbourne Symphony get on board to perform the music, which was just an absolute dream come true. And they really, really helped us out from a financial perspective. But then it was like, right, we now need to raise this much money. And that is, as I'm working on the film and working with Adrian, he's writing the music, still working with Adrian on the, Adrian writing the music, Justin with the visual effects and so on. That really was Jaya goes out and finds the money. And then somehow we have our almost 2 hours of music. And we're there and recording. It's like, right, great, that's that challenge. Right, what's the next thing we've got to do? And it really just became, if we spent a cent, it was because it was what was needed. It was always like, right, what's the next thing we've got to try and cover? So it's a tough way to do it. And like, there are definitely periods where you're like, God, I don't know if this will be possible because we might not have the cash in time. But fortunately, having the project itself be exciting and combined, I think also, as I said, we were really big on having a lot of like behind the scenes material out and had quite a nice little social media following and all that. I think there was a definite feeling of like, oh, this is a project that's doing something special and it's easy to get excited about. Plus everyone loves time travel. Like I think that exactly. Like you tell someone you're doing Back to the Future meets Breaking Bad and they're like, oh, that sounds like fun.
Great way to describe it too.
You can just see like the possibilities with that. So but like it's every film is made differently, and especially independent film. Like whatever your path is to, whether it's getting financing or like I know so many filmmakers who will spend years and years and years trying to get the film off the ground and then finally do, and it's fantastic. For us, we got the film off the ground really quickly and cheaply just by backing ourselves, and then our like 10 years of waiting, not quite 10, but that where a lot it's like raise all the money at the start and try and get it all together and then start shooting. We shot and then spent our post-production trying to fill in those gaps. So it's not terribly unusual to have a film take many years to be finished. It was more just the order that we did it in. Because from writing, like as I said, Adam and I had been developing the idea for a long time. But really we had the shooting script done within a year and were like from let's make this to shooting. It was like a year and a half maybe.
Yeah.
So it started quickly.
So about a year to create and write the film, and then you were up and shooting by 6 months.
After that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it was real quick.
That's pretty quick. Yeah.
And part
especially
of that,
taking on what you took on and the moves you made with it. Yeah.
Well, and I sometimes I do wonder because, like as I say, I do think now at the end it has worked out, but there were certainly moments over the production where I was like, God, have we made a huge mistake trying to make this film as a first film? Maybe this should have been a second film.
Yeah.
But as I say, it did work out. But you do have those moments of like, okay, what, like, if you stop and think about it, this is a bad idea. And I do think a lot of our making any film is almost a bad idea. Like, you know, if you really slow down and think about it and weigh up like the time suck, the financial cost, the impact on your personal life, all those things, it's a terrible idea to make a movie. But
what are you living for at the same time?
Exactly, that's right. And so that momentum though of like, it just like the script came together. We were so excited. It was like everybody that read it was like, love it, let's do it. Like because we moved so quickly, I think that did help us avoid that like conversation you don't want to have where you
with
slow down
or other people.
Exactly.
Momentum.
Exactly.
Momentum is
That's
everything.
It's so important. It's such a key part of anything in like, that there is a time to strike and you can just feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
This
you
is
just got to go. You just got to wing it and do
exactly.
whatever you can to make it happen. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's probably been, did you finish it in 2015, 2016?
The shoot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we finished at the start of 2016. So we started end of 2015, we began principal, shot into 2016. And then it's interesting. It's hard to sort of talk about it in terms of principal and pickups because we did more shooting in 2017 that was specific to visual effects. So it was it was planned photography that just was outside of the main, because the movie kind of divides up quite neatly into sort of chunks and chapters without spoiling how the structure of it.
What you mean.
So we were still shooting, but like we actually picked up some like very small photography just at the end of last year, like it was really just for a visual effects sequence we wanted to see some more people in a bit so it's been an unorthodox approach, but that main block of shooting was end of 2015 into 2016.
And do you think because you were doing those pickups later on the visual effects, you figured out how you would do the things after the fact kind of thing, or was it just you could add to it at the same time, or a bit of everything?
It was a bit of both of those, and then a third thing, which was the similar to the approach with like, okay, what do we need to do next that has to be financed? Now let's focus on that and get it financed. It was the same with like, well, we can kick that can down the road because we know we don't need it until we need it. And having the visual effects approach, I don't know if any of this is making sense, keeping it vague, but having that approach of like, look, it's essentially Justin and I just working through this visual effects load. And if we're not going to use it, we know we're not going to use it until next year, we'll put off having to pull it together until next year because we're focusing on these scenes and these effects and this work. So some of that was just a result of knowing it wasn't needed and having, again, it sounds crazy when you lay it out like that, but it did serve us quite well to sort of tackle bits in chunks. But yeah, definitely things come out where you realize like, oh, this scene would be better if we saw one more shot of blah, and you go back to everybody and you say, hello, can we go back for one more round, or like some more ADR or whatever it is. Which I don't know, everybody kept showing up and everybody was still excited. And it was, I definitely asked way too much of people, and you always do.
I think it's just the nature of the business, right?
Yes.
Yeah, people
definitely
know what they're getting involved with. And if you don't, you probably haven't done your due diligence before you've started and the preparation and everything, right? Yeah, that's amazing. And I suppose too, because at that time, like you're dealing with the visual effects, it's not so much you're dealing with a physical person that's aged over those years too. Somewhat, I mean, it's movie magic, obviously. You can make things happen, but that's a good thing that you've done the principal photography with, the main cast of the actors and everything like that. You've got that done, you've got it there, and then you can just focus on those added elements, right? That put it all together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, guys, you can check that behind the scenes teaser trailer, whichever way you want to call it. I know it's on the link at IMDb, right? It's on your Instagram page, Spacetime Movie. I think.
That's right. Yeah. So all of our social media, we're just Spacetime Movie. So Instagram, Facebook.
And because I noticed on your website, you've got like a lot more of the behind the scenes footage, but is it unlockable to
something
you're doing there?
So that's all. Have a look at the website. Actually, that's a pretty good place to start. spacetimemovie.com. So we've got more content coming, and we're just sitting on it for the time being.
Okay,
so,
right. Yeah.
We've got it protected for the time being.
I wasn't sure if you're doing some subscription-based thing. I'm like, man, this is new. I'm like,
no, we wanted to have it all ready to go, but like I'm very cautious of asking for people's attention and not being able to say, and here's the release date. That's always my concern. You don't want to say.
It's the first question you get, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, can I see it?
Yeah,
because they don't know like what it takes to do this thing. Yeah,
exactly. And so you don't want to be like, hey, Space Time Movie's coming. Hey, and they're like, great. When can we see it? Don't know. So
hold that thought.
Yeah. So we wanted to like not have too much out there, and having already put a lot out in the past over the course of the making, at a certain point you really do switch from the material you're putting out into the world being here's how we're making it, get on the train, come join us, make this film. You switch into we're now a movie that's coming out, and that's kind of the phase right now. So we've cleared a lot of the material that was out previously, and now we're focused on finished movie and how we want people to engage with that and how we want to promote that and just get people excited about the movie itself. So that sort of mini teaser announcement video is sort of the first step of that new sort of wave of content we're putting out. But there's some cool photos and galleries and things on the website, and you can see some of the just a taste of the work we've been doing.
Yeah, cool. And like with obviously bringing on the other financial people and things like that, like how did you guys work that all out? I mean, you've got full creative control still, and like, did you have difficulties with any of that kind of side of things?
No, everyone's been, I suppose you already shot
great.
It too. Well, that's true. It's too late. I think everybody bought into the vision of what the movie was going to be, but also the spirit in which we were doing it. I think it was for the people that were backing us. And so really like we had, I feel like, gosh, I should probably know the number off the top of my head. I feel like maybe 12 or so people put money in rather large sums of money. And it's a mixture of some of people that I knew that I was able to bring on, just through, hey, I'm making this movie, have a look at it. Oh, it looks great. I'm in. And then others, it was approaching just strangers that we knew had money. Well, not knew had money, but knew were eager to support artistic projects like this. Knew people, that were excited about this kind of project. So it was a real mix of different personalities. And I think if they know, certainly between Adam, Jai, and myself, if they know that we're willing to throw ourselves off a bridge to get our movie made, they don't want to be the ones that come in and go, I also want the movie to be blah. Yeah. Like they're clearly showing up because they respect what the lengths we're willing to go to and how much we've already put in. So no, there really has never been a conversation around hate this scene or don't like that. There's certainly everyone has an opinion, and we're quite. It's a lot of fun showing the movie to an audience and just having them react to it like it's a movie. Like that's something that none of the people working on it can truly do, is be surprised by the film because they know where it's going. So that was very helpful for us, showing an investor the movie or talking to them about the story before there was a cut or at whatever stage they came on. And getting their response, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. You like this character, didn't like that character, and I'd be an idiot to not take that on. Just an audience's response. But no, from a creative control point of view, nothing but support and an astounding patience. That's really the big one. Like not knowing what our completion date would be, and always having the best of intentions and the hope that hopefully it's a year or two or three or who knows. And then you hit COVID and things slow and get harder again. And, there's just all these different challenges that are filmmaking specific. And then you have all the real world challenges as well. And we were very lucky to have a very supportive, very patient and enthusiastic group of people backing us. And also, like I said, we all put our own money. Like I was personally financially I've put equal the largest sum with some of the other investors. Like they know I'm in, I'm on the line as well. So I think it's harder to be like demanding, because we're not just taking, like we're also putting in ourselves as well.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the characters in the film, like what were, can you give us a bit of background on some of them without giving away too much? Or
you're talking about the characters themselves or the cast?
The characters in the film. Yeah.
So there's really there's three main principles. The characters Liv, Holt, and Harris. But Liv, it's really Liv's story. So she's played by Ashley Lowback. She's our point of view character, and she's the sort of second in command, I suppose, to Holt, who's played by Hugh Parker. He is the scientist whose vision this engine is, and he's kind of a mentor to her, but she's also absolutely critical to the project and a major part of the success of this machine. And so you really have in Holt a character who is willing to do anything to get this machine built and working. And in the same way that we've been talking about filmmaking, it's a very clear parallel there. He'll do anything to get it done. He'll talk to anyone. He'll steal, he'll borrow, he'll do whatever it takes. And then Liv, our point of view character, it's all about her trying to figure out where the line is for her, as she also believes in the machine and wants to have to complete it. Part of their motivation is in the in the world of our film, everyone is quite worried about the path we're on, just humanity is on. And we're like, all right, we're not out of time yet, but we can see we're on a timeline where we might want to leave this planet or start thinking about getting out there. And this really is the team that are beginning research, beginning development that maybe in 100 years could save humanity, like when we really have to think about getting off this planet. And so there is a motivation of like, well, what we're doing is important. It's about exploration. It's about taking the next step for humankind. It's and it's a potential to find a new home if we ever need it. And so she has a very clear, like, wants to complete it, needs to, like, can see all the benefits of this machine. And it's just the, like, how deep is she willing to go in following Holt as he's willing to do darker and darker things to pull off the creation of the machine. And then the third sort of principal character is Harris, who's played by Pacharo Bazembe, and he's the love interest essentially to Liv, and she very much he represents sort of her home life and emotional life. And so as she is pulled between her work and her passion and drive for the project, and also the challenges of this sort of more complex approach to getting it done, she's also trying to balance that with being a good partner, being someone who's available and emotional, and trying to really have both. And so the film, it's a big fun time travel adventure, but thematically there's a couple of things going on, and one of the big ones is just, can you have both? Can you have the home life and can you have the work life, and what's that balance, and what does it take? Which, again, I think is something that's quite relatable to anybody undertaking a project, not just filmmaking, where you have to constantly make choices that, you're working on this film 7 days a week, all hours a day. Can you also have a healthy relationship at the same time? I think anyone that takes on any enormous project, whether it is scientific pursuit, whether it is starting a small business, a startup, it always takes more of yourself, and it slowly chips away and dominates you. So that's really the sort of core challenge for these characters. You also have Harris is also a character who's attempting to do the same thing in terms of the scientific discovery, but he's doing it the straight and narrow way, which is the very slow way, and they're always dealing with financing and the big business way. So she gets to see sort of both sides and is trying to navigate it. Yeah.
Is that Erin's character? Is it Erin?
Oh, Erin's character, she is. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
yes, that's right. So she's the boss of Harris's company at the beginning of the film, and yes, she's very much represents the business side, which again, putting it in filmmaking terms, that's the thing that Holt's character can't stand. The having to fit the corporate world. So yeah, there's definitely for his character a move to get away from that side and do it himself without that oversight.
Yeah, and Ashley's kind of like the moral compass.
Yes,
that you're following through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely the audience surrogate and the person that is struggling the most with the moral challenges and the different ambitions and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it makes for a very relatable human story to kind of ground you while you're jumping through time.
Yeah. No. It sounds like very well put together by you guys. Yeah. It really seems like a complete film from what you're saying. Yeah. Obviously haven't seen it, but I love the backstory and what you've got going on with it without asking too many other questions that are giving away plot and everything. I can sort of put it together with what you're saying, and I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, well, and it's been nice too because you mentioned like Erin's character, and there are so many other supporting characters in the film that really do help sort of flesh out the world, but also everyone sort of has a little version of what I've described, and we've tried to be quite careful just to make sure that everybody has a challenge, or like they have to side with one of these philosophies, and sort of seeing how different people respond all throughout the film. So
they got to have obstacles to overcome their own personal growth. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that's it. Mm. And for those guys who listened to the last episode with Gideon on, that is his brother. That is that is in the film as one of the leads.
That's right. Yeah, Patch.
Yeah.
Very talented family.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, it's fun. Yeah, because he I saw him when I was working on Nautilus, like the Disney series. Like he's got a big role in that, obviously. And Hugh was on there. I actually stood in for him one day as well. Yeah. Well, he was doing a bit part thing, and I was standing in for another one of the main actors in the scene. And he didn't have a stand. And they're like, Dan, do you want to stay around? I'm like, don't got to tell me twice. I'll hang around on set.
He must have loved that.
And it happened to be him. Yeah. So, he was so in character though, because obviously he had to do a British accent as well. And I made some joke. I can't remember what it was because I can't really say too much of what he was doing. It's hard to say the context of the joke.
Disney will be very
unhappy. So in character. He like straight faced me. I'm like, okay, we'll do that.
That's great.
It was funny. He laughed, but he was you could tell he was trying to be professional. And he's a good actor though. I've seen him in other things.
Yeah.
Ashley as well. She's doing I think she's getting a few things now, it seems like, from what I understand. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's everyone's been doing some really great work. It's pretty exciting. And, we're, again, just so grateful to everyone in the cast that came on and wanted to be part of this. Having a long post-production, it's been very rewarding and exciting for us to sort of see everybody as they've also moved through their career and, building themselves up. Like it was, what was it recently? Oh, because Hugh had quite a good role in Elvis, and getting to see that sequence, which had some, it's wild to say this, but once you've seen Space Time, it will make sense. There were a few similarities in the nature of his scene up in this control room, looking down on this thing going wrong. I'm like, oh wow, that really feels like a scene in Space Time.
Yeah, so, is that the special that they did?
That's right. The Christmas special.
So I do remember he was on that.
Yeah. So, it's been great seeing everyone. I'm very excited for Nautilus, and we're very lucky with our cast.
Well, I mean, these things are gonna. They're all going to coincide, when you eventually get your release of what you're doing,
Absolutely.
These guys, things that they're on are going to be getting released at a similar time, and, the domino effect of all this. And
definitely.
That's the fantastic part about it, isn't it?
That is the joke I always make, but it's not that we wouldn't sped things up, but the real reason we stayed in post this long was waiting for all of our cast to get really famous. That was really why we did. No, it's great. Ash has got a new film starring Arj Barker called The Nut Farm coming out soon.
I auditioned for one of the roles in it.
I got to see a screening of it recently, and it's fantastic.
Oh,
it's
right.
really funny.
Yeah.
And Nautilus for Patch, and Hugh's in almost everything it seems now. So it's pretty exciting time for everybody in the cast.
No, it is. Yeah, it's awesome. But so that's the idea, right? Is to go the larger festival route once you're finished.
Yeah, I think we've absolutely talked to distributors and thought about sales, but the very promising thing with the film is because we've done a number of test screenings for general audiences, and the reaction's always really good. We've you always put a few friends in there because just in case everyone hates it, you want someone that's nice to you. Yeah. But we even like the general audience, like we just got a great response from, and so it seemed wisest to us to try and use what has been consistently a good audience reaction to leverage the best possible release. We have a few plans already figured out and a few things we're still circling and I'm not sure about, but ultimately, our hope is to go the festival route. I think that would be honestly the most fun and rewarding, having spent all this time on this film. I just personally really want to see the film in a major festival. And being such a tough road for a film like this in terms of getting any sort of major cinema release now. I think that's really our thinking is a major festival and then see what's possible from there. And
see what happens. I mean, it's great to have the streaming route, isn't it? Like as a filmmaker and everything, and a means of hopefully eventually getting paid for these things, right? But ultimately, cinema release is the goal. Is to showcase the film, or I mean, that would be the
and honestly, like
scenario.
Most people watch movies on streaming now, and I think that's completely valid. It's and the conversation I have with myself is always just like how much of I just want it on the big screen is just my like ego as a director / love of cinema.
There's a bit of everything.
Like honestly, I just want the most people possible to see the film, and however they watch it is fine by me. Like we watch things on our phones, we watch things on laptops. Like it's better to accept and embrace that and not resist it as much as I am a purist who likes to see everything at the cinema. I just want the most people possible to enjoy the film and or not, just to see it and hopefully be distracted for a couple of hours and have a good time. And also see what's possible in Queensland, because it is a Queensland film. And we're quite proud of that. And I think it's great to have a film that is primarily Queensland talent in the cast. It's nice to. That's why I admire filmmakers like Jeremy and so many others that are doing things here. Like it's a hard place to get an independent film off the ground, and we have so many incredible filmmakers and performers here. It's going to be like I just want people to see some of what we're capable of.
No, that's amazing. Can't wait. And you were saying before, and I have noticed that on your Instagram and stuff like that, that your love of orchestra and classical sort of music and things like
nerd.
that.
Huge nerd,
and it's just like for the tonality of the film, I could see why that would really work, having that in as well. How did you? I mean, you have a composer that sort of worked things out with working with you and then worked with the orchestra to get the feeling and the vibe of what you wanted?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that's Adrian Diary. So Adrian and I have been working together for over 10 years now, I think. And we did all of our short films, and every short film we've had some version of an orchestra. Like that's just been it. Like we had our first short was a volunteer orchestra. We just like advertised at the con, hi, come and play in our score for this short film. And then gradually sort of building up. But for this one, we honestly, when we started, we were like, well, it'll probably, because it's a feature and because I know I use music quite liberally, I like to think I overuse it, but I do like to have a lot of music in there. We were thinking originally that it might have to be part electronic, part live, and we'd try and find a balance there. And then it just became clearer and clearer as the edit came together that this type of movie was best supported by that full orchestra feeling. And so we're like, right, we're just going to have to shoot for this and really go for it. And yeah, working with Adrian, it's, again, as I said, I can be quite annoying. And like, it's certainly not easy writing music on this scale in this way. And because I have very specific ideas about what I'd like, it's definitely a process of us working together. But he's just that one of those guys that the notes come to him. And I know it's not an easy, like, it doesn't just magically appear from the ether. I know it's a lot of work, but he's got that real magic talent for melody and for supporting images with music and knowing what's right and sort of when the music should carry the scene and when it should sort of fall to the back. And it's a very big part of my process is sort of working out the music. I think that being a product of kind of 70s, 80s, 90s cinema and growing up on that sort of Spielberg, Lucas kind of style of movies, I definitely do tend towards that scale. Like, big John Williams fan, love all that sort of, like, I like to leave a movie humming the themes. Like I like it when the music is, in my mind after the film's done. So we were really trying to have a film score that had every character has a musical identity and that different when a certain thing happens where you might have a signature sort of musical sound and talking about like, this is Liv's theme, and we could have a darker version when things are going badly, and then when things are going well, we'll have a more positive version, and then at a certain point of growth for her, the theme will transform and become something else, and then
see how she deals with the situation. Get people in the feeling of it.
Because and it's interesting. Like I think there's. Like I love the idea of also doing a movie with very little music one day, but I'm a great believer in using every tool in the belt to tell the story and to tell the emotional journey. And music's a very big one, and it really does help. Like I guess it would be wrong to say it carries the film, because I think performances do such a great job of carrying the movie as well. But it's just one of the many major components that carries it,
the
and makes
final
it all
workings
gel
that put
and
it together.
come together. Exactly.
Which people don't. A lot of people, if they're not cinephiles or anything, like they don't understand what's going on. They just enjoy it, which is the main
that's
thing,
the point.
right?
Yeah, that's what you want.
The point. You don't want to
100%.
But guys probably like us that watch things are just like like you're still in it to enjoy it, but you're analytically like pulling apart little things when you're watching the film and going, I see what they did there. Or when you watch it a second, maybe third time, you start to notice that stuff. Hey?
Definitely. And it's something because Adam is very much the same as me. And so even in the writing, like I remember like him being like, he'll do a pass on a scene and give it to me, and he's already like, and I know, like I've written this knowing what you're going to do with the music here. He's as excited about that. And really everybody is, again, it's true of most of the people in sort of the core crew. We're all kind of big fans of this sort of film music and style. But yeah, even in the writing, we are talking about music. We're talking about, this will be a montage with this kind of feel, or this is a really big action scene. Yeah, we just know it's going to be something like this, and we'll be talking about musical ideas and temp ideas from like other film scores. This from Indiana Jones or this from Star Trek or what have you would be the right kind of tone for this sort of scene. It's just another part of the process that as you say, you don't want the audience thinking about, but hopefully it contributes to it all just working and telling the story in the best way possible. Yeah.
Is it hard to find something original when you've got those ideas in mind too, though? Because obviously you see things and they kind of repeat similar things. I mean, I think everybody does that over the ages of filmmaking, right? You just like, you love this director and you steal little things from here and there and there, and fit it to your own and make it work for you and what story you're trying to tell. But I mean, when it comes to music, like there's the iconic Star Wars stuff or what have you, and you kind of associate that with time, or not time trip, but space and everything. And it's like, we want something like this, but just a bit different, so nobody realizes. That must be hard to find something original in that regard. But if you're doing it and having composers involved as an orchestra, that makes it a bit easier. Well, maybe not easier, but you have more to pull from and more people to, collaborate with to achieve that, right?
Well, and I think, it's true of writing, it's true of shot construction, it's true of performance. You are looking at a unique expression of an old idea. Like, take acting, for example. An actor has to yell because they're angry, but you are getting that actor's unique take on yelling. Are they looking? Is it eye contact? Are they looking away? Are they storming in? Are they punching the wall? Like, there are so many different ways for an actor to scream at another actor in a dramatic scene. Same with music. There are only so many notes, only so many chords, only so many ways, you can combine the instruments to create a sound.
Because there's a lot of copyrights, like with music that comes out a lot these days, right? And they're like, it's got the same thing. But because I think Ed Sheeran won a famous one a while ago, the other day, and he's like, look, there's only this many chords. If I play it this way, it still sounds the same if I play it that way. And I think he won. There you go.
Well, it's the composer's unique, like, taking of the, like, all the musical colors that already exist and putting them together in a slightly different way. And I think I can say pretty confidently that while you might go, it's a bit Star Wars-y, you couldn't point to like any one cue in the Star Wars scores and go, that's the one they're like ripping off. Like, it's definitely its own thing. And I think also, being as familiar as I am with film scores, like, I just hear it all the time. Like, you watch one film by one composer, and then that composer working on another film's music, and you can hear the same ideas, which I quite like the idea of, although things should be made for a project, I also understand the idea that artists explore ideas across multiple projects. Same as, it's such a regular theme for Spielberg films is exploring the relationships of fathers and sons. That's a theme he's worked on across many movies, most of his movies, and he always comes back to the same thematic material. I feel the same way with cinematographers, that like, this is a style of photography. Like, you look at the early Christopher Nolan films with Wally Pfister, his cinematographer, they were kind of constantly developing a particular style, a cooler palette, lots of handheld, these sort of tricks. You can use handheld. The Bourne movies use handheld. The Bond movies use handheld. It's a doco style, but they were doing it in a very particular way, and you can see from movie to movie the evolution of that. It's the same with music. It's just that I do think, because music being what it is, you catch that little earworm and you're like, that reminds me of Batman. That sounds the same. But it is the same principle of, we're just working through an idea and expressing it different ways and developing ideas. Because, like, as I said, there's only so many musical notes, same way that there's only so many story ideas. I say, Space Time is like Breaking Bad meets Back to the Future. You probably will look at it if you really pay attention and go, that is very Back to the Future. But we've done it in a different way because we've made them criminals at the, And having said that, actually, the opening of Back to the Future is basically Breaking Bad, because Doc Brown steals the plutonium to make the time machine in the first place. He's all like, again, it's this endlessly, feeding itself. This idea goes well with this, but then you do it in this interesting way and create something new. That's my ramble. That's my rant on the reusing of ideas and originality.
I mean, it's just, it's weird, It's like the art that you're creating, but like, it's coming from somewhere, like the void of things, or wherever you're getting these ideas from, it's all, you're a product of your environment and the things that you surround yourself with, and you watch, you take in, and then you make your own thing with it.
And you must do that as an actor as well. Like, you must look at performers that you admire and performances of theirs and say, oh man, I'd like to have that feeling in one of my performances. And so you won't necessarily look at, like, let's say Adam Driver in Marriage Story, the endlessly memed scene of him yelling. I've never seen the film. Well, he has a terrific argument with Scarlett Johansson's character, and it's a very powerful piece of very shouty acting and very affecting. And like, I get a real feeling from it. And I could see myself, if I were an actor, being like, I'd like to have that kind of feeling in this scene, in this script I'm working on, like, oh, like that inspires me.
Okay, yeah.
But you're not actually going to look at what another actor's doing. Like, oh, he's got his hand up and he's pointing and he's shouting, and you don't want to do that.
You're actually acting then, which is obviously the thing you want to be throwing out the door when you're acting. It's such a weird thing. But
So you're inspired by the things you admire. You look at other films, you look at music. Like, I look at paintings, I like looking at artwork. I see a lot of theatre. I love musical theatre as well. And there's no musical theatre influence necessarily in space-time. It's a time travel movie. But I can't help but have little bits of the stuff I admire just sort of creep in, and every now and then I'm like, oh, where did that idea come from? Oh, I wonder if that's just that idea sparked and from that thing I saw, and I connected it with this, and
but it's your own little organic thing as well at the same time.
Exactly. That's right.
That's so cool. What is your sort of your directing approach when it comes to actors and things like that? Because it varies with a lot of people. Like, how do you like to get your actors to work? I mean, do you give them quite a bit of freedom? Are you more a little hands-on? Like, are you dealing with them in the preparation process so much that then you just let them do their thing, or?
It's interesting. That's definitely an evolving approach, and the first feature is the time we're like, that's the kind of director I am, and there's a certain level of like, oh man, how am I going to go with it? Okay, cool. In those three principles, we had three very different styles of acting and approaches to acting between Ash, Hugh, and Patch, and I rehearsed with them. We rehearsed the whole film like it was a play, and that was like I always will want to do that. I love rehearsing, because you can find opportunities and you have time to explore ideas when there's not a crew of 50 people standing around waiting. Look, I do think what I have come to realize, even in the other, just even corporates and ads and things that I've been doing in the time that space-time has been in post, I'm a big believer in put the elements in and then just see what happens and then craft from there. Like, I do like to see what people's initial instincts are. Sometimes you don't have time to explore an idea, and I know I drove all three of the cast crazy at times with, I'm really sorry, we just do not have time. Please do it this way, which I hate. But at the same time, again, you got 2 hours to shoot a scene. You got to get your coverage, But I like to think that there's, as much as possible, I would hope that the actors from Space-Time would agree, I like to think I was as open as possible to ideas and suggestion. I love finding character through blocking. I'm a really big fan of, like, let's find action that expresses the what the character's feeling in a moment. I really love the visual metaphor in shot construction and blocking as well. Placing the powerful person larger in the frame and all that sort of stuff. And I love visual puns. I love puns in general. But like, I like it when it's like, I like to try and find opportunities to be clever and have a scene's blocking reflect what's going on, or inside the character or in the story, or what have you. So I'll come in with clear ideas, and then just I think if you can, having time to play, see what everyone's initial instincts are, and then shaping it from there. A scene that I just love, and I'm so it's one of my favorite bits of movement, is the scene between Patch and Ash, where they're at home and they're watching TV and they're having a conversation. And at this point in the story, Ash's character is unemployed, and Patch's character is getting ready for work, and he's kind of sort of mothering her, and like he's like making breakfast and things, and as they're chatting, and she's not eating her toast fast enough because she's watching TV. And he just, in the rehearsal process, just came over, picked up the plate, put the toast in her mouth, and took it so that he could keep cleaning it. And it was just this little moment of inspiration. And so her next line, she had a piece of toast in her mouth. I go, oh, it's pretty exciting. Because he's like, I got to go to work. You've got all the time in the world, but I got somewhere to be. So I'm going to pick up this plate, stick the last piece of toast in your mouth, and take the plate away so I can clean it and keep getting ready for it. And I thought it was such a wonderful expression of the familiarity of these two characters that are in love.
Yeah.
It expresses yes, he's in a hurry. He's got somewhere to be because he's got purpose. And for this character who at this point in the story has lost their purpose and is kind of, just lost in general, they got all the time in the world, and so can take their time munching and chatting and all the rest of it. And that just came out of the rehearsal. Pash just did it.
Yeah.
It just felt right in the moment, and it's one of my favorite moments in the film. And it's very cute because again, you get the feeling of like, oh, these two are in love and live together.
Even though she doesn't realize that she's depending on him, like he's helping her, supporting her, and then it helps that relationship build. And the visual cues for the audience.
That's right. And so if I'd been like, no, you are standing in the kitchen, that opportunity would never have come. And I've got hundreds of those. All like from the cast, Hugh, Ash, Patch, everybody just coming up with like little bits of business and ideas, and then that sparks an idea. And as much as you can, you want to be able to explore those. In terms of tone, that's probably the hardest thing to manage when on a first-time film, you're trying to hold the whole film in your head, and then you're wanting to see where opportunities are, and then a little alarm bell goes off and says, this is feeling too silly, or this is feeling insincere, or this is feeling whatever. And that might be a point where you have to really go, uh-oh, this isn't working. Let's break this apart. Let's bring it back to basics. Let's what have you. But when you're working, the old saying is, if you cast well, the job is done as far as directing actors. And I was very lucky to have some unbelievably talented actors who showed up with ideas and were happy to work with me, and all really respected how enormous what we were trying to do was, and that, ask, suggest, put forward an idea, make an offer, and if we don't have time to explore it, there was hardly any like butting of heads. It was all very like, no, we're all here. We know what we got to do. And so it worked out really well. And just figuring out, between like, you start to get a sense really quickly of, okay, this actor is consistent. Like they find it and then they hit that mark every time. And then you got the actor that on take 1 and 2 and 3, it's rubbish. And then take 4, holy shit, it's incredible. And then 5 and 6 are going to be great. And then you're going to slowly lose it again after. And then another of the actors, it's the take 1, incredible. Take 2, wildly different idea. Take 3, completely different, terribly wrong. Take 4, and it's just that it's my job to try and get them all to converge at the right time, and have the go take for all be at the same time, and trying to control that as well as best you can.
And understand that about your actors that you're working with. That's how they are. That's a really good intuitive director. And also I say that this one actor might give a terrible performance, take one. It's like, also my direction might just be straight up wrong. My blocking idea might be wrong. Where the camera is might be like, no one's right every single time. It's always a little bit of a crapshoot of like, oh, they walked there and it now looks better there and what have you. So trying to be as open as you can whilst also maintaining the tone and keeping the train on the tracks. That's essentially what I found to be the the job. No, it's a good mindset to have. It's just always interesting how people, different people approach how they're doing the work, and obviously from being on different sides of it, it's interesting to hear how you approach it. And obviously, like I said, I mean, you continually obviously tweaking yourself and checking yourself and changing that as you go. If you see fit to. You're growing as well as everybody else through the whole project.
I think I'm a much better director than I was at the time we shot Space Time. And a lot of we if we're not learning, then what are we even doing? I would like to believe that I went a certain amount of reflection after of how could I have done better? How could I be better? Working with someone like Hugh, who is so experienced and has a very specific approach. That I have just endless respect for his approach to acting, and I think it's why he just doesn't do a bad performance as far as I'm concerned. But I am. It's how can I be a good director for his approach? How can I answer his questions? And like trying to keep up with that was a real challenge at times. And other times it's like, oh no, I've got absolutely the answer and I know exactly what I want. And you're just trying to fit the different shapes and be the best you can to help them be the best they can in front of the camera. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, what are your inspirations then with film? Like, obviously, you've spoken about Spielberg and Lucas and guys like that with Sci-Fi Films and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you sound like you've really thought out with everything that you're sort of doing. Obviously, you have to be because you're the one like leading the train, so to speak. And like very thought out with like shot selections and things like that. I mean, that's got to come with having a good DOP as well, right? Cinematographer, and you guys jiving together to figure that out. I mean, do you use the same guy, or is that a lot of like what are your inspirations in all that regard?
Well, I guess in terms of inspiration, like I just like movies and like I've talked a lot about Spielberg, and he certainly is my favorite director, but like I like anything good, and I try to see as much as I can, and I try to take as much as I can from anything. That kind of this kind of movie, and our aspirations for it, we were definitely sort of operating in that kind of Spielberg-y space in terms of like our approach. I don't believe it's anywhere near as good as a Spielberg film, but like we're definitely like inspired by a lot of the like what his best sci-fi films and adventure films have, just as guiding principles. But I don't know, I get a lot, as I say, from just cinema in general. Try to see everything, and sometimes it's seeing a movie that you don't like and going, okay, well, I don't want to be that, or getting a handle on like, oh, that's how they handled this. How interesting! I wonder what it would be like to handle it like that. So you take influence from all over. Like one of my favorite shows that I constantly come back to is Mad Men, and that's like a great example of like just taking what's essentially a soap opera set in the 60s and elevating it, and just through incredible writing and performance and shot construction, all the rest of it. Trying to make something that is sort of just the very best version of what is essentially this person sleeping with that person, and that person's married to that person, and they've got this challenge at work and job and just their lives. And so like I really admire that, like, oh, how can you take what is basically a simple idea and just elevate it through all the things I've said. But I don't know. In terms of movies that inspire me, just generally anything good. Like every chance I can to see 2001 on the big screen, there. Like that's just one of those movies I always come back to. Just recently did a bunch of the Christopher Nolan films. They were doing a marathon at Palace, and so went back and watched The Dark Knight again, and nice. Interstellar, and a few of those, and they're all like, it's like interesting watching them, being like, oh wow, I really have been very influenced by these films in a lot I don't know. There's almost too many to list that it's hard to start talking specifically. I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin fan, and I don't think anyone would watch Space Time and go, ooh, wow, I can really see a lot of the West Wing in there. But the way I move the Steadicam, I'm like, oh, I can kind of see where I've taken that, like that camera move and that bit of blocking. That feels a little bit like the West Wing, little things like that. Great admirer of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, everything Peter Jackson's been doing with those films. Like, it's so inspiring, seeing someone on our end of the world doing films on that scale at that level, and having them be so good, but also retaining his signature goofiness. Like, I love going back to that original Rings trilogy, and just, the number of times the camera is clearly just handheld and running up close to the face, and like it just feels like one of his earlier films. So I take inspiration from all sorts of places, and like I said, love theater, and any way you can take it. I guess it's if it's good and it inspires you, what did I see? Oh, recently watching the Brisbane production of Hamilton. That was another you just leave it so charged and ready to create and make a mark. It's very inspiring.
Yeah. Well, true artists brings them from everywhere, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, imagine it's the exact same for you.
Yeah. It's just I watch a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
And so you pull in little things here and there, and I think it just stays in your head, right? And then you pluck it out when you need it, or it jives with that other idea, and then organically it just creates its own thing. Yeah.
Well, what to put that question back on you, like, what are your influences? Like, how do you answer that question? Who do you look at as your influences?
I think similarly, just films in a whole.
Yeah.
Because like growing up and watching movies, and like I'm from a small town in Blenheim, New Zealand, top of the South Island. And, when I was there, it was 30, 40,000 people or something like that, very little. And to think that you were going to chase acting at some point was obviously so far from anything.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of, you're feeling your way through your teenage years or what have you, and you're watching these films and you're kind of living through the characters sometimes, or you're learning life lessons, whether they're right or wrong, obviously through these characters, and it's just exciting and it's exhilarating, and it's something that you can't experience in your life yet, but you're getting to feel something through this visual medium that you're watching, and it's quite amazing. And then when you start to grow up and you get more confidence about you and the world and what you want to do, then you figure out, then you're like, oh, maybe I can actually do this to a certain extent. And then you meet certain people and they tell you it's all right, you can believe to think this way. And that was all like in correlation with me moving to Australia, basically, and setting up a life over here, sort of by myself and finding my way through it all. And I just kind of fell into acting. And then you meet, you attract the people in that give you this confidence within yourself. And you're like, it's weird when you're not used to getting that kind of positive reinforcement from people around you, because it's a very, it's a thing that's in the creative arts. Obviously, there's some other bad apples within it all as well, but that's something that you don't see in a lot of professions, is that kind of like backing each other up and telling you can do the impossible. And giving you confidence within each other, and just like, it doesn't really happen a lot. I mean, it does sometime in sports as well, but also not so much, from after talking to Gideon about it as well a lot. And you've listened to the pods, you would have sort of got that from it. It's really one in itself, it's such a great thing to be involved in. It's such a huge collaborative process, obviously, as we know. And it's so many talented, skillful people bringing their own little energy and their own little zest to the project to bring it to life, from your original concept idea. So I mean, movies, taught me a lot. And then when I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can play that badass action star or whatever it is, I can kiss that hot girl. Whatever it is, like just blanketed thing. But and then you get to do it, and then you realize it's so different from what you actually think that it is.
Of course.
And the places you have to go to actually be able to evoke that kind of emotion within yourself and the person you're acting across. And then the person watching it has their own thing of it too. And then you understand this process and you're like, wow, you would not have thought that all this stuff goes into the actual art that you're consuming, and it's such a beast, but it's a wild ride and it's so exciting. And when you're passionate about something like that, that really matters. And like, it's like, what are you living for at the end of the day, So I think everything, those, but I mean, main influences, like I like the sci-fi stuff. Like I grew up on Star Wars, absolutely love Star Wars, but it's also the more I get older, the more, and I'm not sure what your opinion would be on this, and whether, like when I sort of met certain people and started to understand energy, in people and things like that, and energy all around me, and sort of opened up to the spiritual realm. I don't know if you're sort of like connected with that in a certain way, or what have you, but some people that it's just like complete woo-woo, whatever. when I started to understand that was sort of the stuff that I was kind of feeling always growing up, I just didn't understand the energy around me and the people and what I'm like picking up off all these people and why I'm steering clear of that person kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's all an energy thing and it's all around us. And it's interesting that kind of, and I don't know if this is just where I've come to with it.
Yeah.
Like of George Lucas creating the Star Wars thing. It's like the Force is energy, you know, and it is the thing that you feel around you on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you can harness that, and there's the good and the bad, you know, the dark and the light side and what you choose to do with that. And we all have both sides within us.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a humanity set in space.
Yeah.
You know, doing the thing that they're doing. You know, the Force to me is just energy and it's all around. You know, they speak about it obviously, but I can really take the correlation with the spiritual realm and what I learned with all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if they ever intended that kind of thing, but it seems so like a blueprint to me.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. So that was a huge influence for me, I guess, Star Wars and just growing up. I just love Star Wars. And I love everything they're doing. Yeah. And I can't stand the people that knock the TV shows and everything. Like, I mean, everyone's got their opinions and fair right. Like if you're a fan, sure. But God damn it, guys, aren't you happy they're making more stuff?
Well, and I feel the same way in that I know, because like it was interesting, as I am such a fan of The Last Jedi, and I know that it seems like the internet hates that movie so much, but I loved it.
That's the second new one,
the
right?
second of the that's right.
I just recently watched 3 again last week, or whatever it was. Yeah.
But I think what is great about Star Wars, and I always want to remind people, because I don't love everything that's being made, but I do think that Star Wars is the kind of universe that can have something for everyone. If you don't like the cartoon, there's a movie for you. If you don't love that movie, great news. We've got a TV series on Disney Plus that's going to be your kind of thing. Yeah. There's so many different styles and so many different types of storytelling that if you do encounter one that you're like, this one's not for me, great news, right around the corner is another one that is going to be a bit more fun or a bit sillier or a bit more serious.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really great thing, that it's not necessarily a set, like there are rules, I suppose, to the universe, but there aren't rules to the storytelling. And that's what's so invigorating about what we're seeing with Star Wars is that, if you see a show and you don't love it, the next one is another shot because it's different creatives being backed. And I really, again, love the movies or hate them. It really does feel like Lucasfilm backs their creatives in a big way. Like, Rian Johnson, what would you like to do with episode 8? Go for it. Like, J.J. Abrams, what would you like to do with episode 7? Go for it. Like, it does seem like you can always feel the fingerprints of the creatives. Favreau and Filoni with the series that they've done, they feel exactly like a Favreau and Filoni series. Like, it doesn't feel like the as much as people like to accuse Disney of this, it doesn't actually feel like it's being watered down. It doesn't actually feel like they're being told, you must do this. It does feel like we're following the creative instincts of a group. So, So I really appreciate that about where modern Star Wars is, whether I love a particular series or a particular film or what have you. Yeah. But I do, I like what you said there of the spirituality with Star Wars and everything. It's interesting because for me, I didn't necessarily articulate it as like, I believe in anything being guided, but I do like what you said about choice, where it's like, why do I choose to have a person's energy around me or not? Yeah. And like, I think that's very much what the Force and Star Wars is sort of going for, is that idea of, it is all choice ultimately. We're not just being like, we're guided towards certain people or certain events, but I don't think that it's, we're without choice in it all. I do still think it's ultimately, are you going to go to the good side or the bad?
You've always got a choice.
And I think that's
I mean, as much as you're pushed to wherever you are, like I think you still do most times have a choice. You know?
And that's where all great drama, all drama comes from choice as well. Like I think that's we are watching essentially characters in movies make choices and seeing which way they go and how they navigate. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
everything stems back to that. So I think that's right.
Yeah. I mean, and also like your Mission. I mean, I love Mission Impossibles. Things like that.
I can't wait for the new one.
Oh man, there's so many different things like films I could say. You grow up on the the action stars, like the real action stars, where there's not a huge amount of those these days. Sure. I mean, they're kind of not doing those films anymore.
Different
but
kind
like
of
your
thing,
Arnie and your Yeah, all those kind of guys. I mean, Jason Bourne series, amazing. There's just so much of that stuff, that I love.
And it's interesting, just as you were sort of listing there, it's like, oh, of course, I can't believe I haven't mentioned James Cameron once in this in terms of influences. Just every film of his, so well structured, in the writing, such great concepts, and exactly what I'm talking about when I say that sci-fi is the best example of take a sci-fi concept to get things started and then put humans in there. That's what the Terminator 2 are. It's like time travel in the Terminator movies is just what kicks things off. You're not really, especially for the two James Cameron ones, time travel happens at the start to get the robot back in time, and everything else is taking place in
real time.
In the real time, you're not jumping in and out of time.
You're throwing a foreign element into the scenario.
Exactly. Your monster is a robot from the future. How do you deal with it? How does an ordinary person in Sarah Connor navigate a guy coming from the future and saying, "Hi, I'm here to protect you. There's a robot coming to kill you. Trust me. Come with me if you want to live."
The second one.
and honestly, I think both those first two Terminators are absolutely incredible films.
But it's been a while since I've seen them again. But they are.
They really hold up. But that's the perfect example of a filmmaker that is a massive inspiration in that. There's this cleanness to his filmmaking and writing that I really enjoy, and then it allows it to be all about the action, the characters, the choices, and how they go. And I think that's why he's possibly one of the most successful filmmakers ever.
Exactly. Well, I just watched that Arnie documentary on Netflix. I haven't
seen it yet. How is it?
It's good. It's good. But there's a lot that I didn't know about him either. I obviously grew up as him as an action star, but loved what he was doing, but didn't really know a lot of the backstory. I know the bodybuilding stuff, but I didn't know the in-depth stuff of the bodybuilding. And obviously I love an origin story. I think everybody does. So the first episode is awesome. It's basically broken up into 3 parts of the episodes, and you've got Arnie the athlete doing his bodybuilding, Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia, and all that stuff. And what I loved about that first one is his passion for, he knew he wasn't supposed to be where he was, and that he wanted to get to America, and he knew he could be wanted to be sort of a movie, Mr. Olympia and a movie star, and had his idols, and then he was achieving all these things. And then second one is it's on his acting and the movie star, but it's not. It's actually probably the least of the 3 episodes of actually about it. So I wish they did more of the acting stuff a little more. Even though I think they expect you to know, but they do show quite a bit too, including the James Cameron and them doing that basically as an indie as a first film. It was his first feature, which I didn't exactly know. I think it was his first feature, I believe, or it was a
James Cameron? Well, he technically had Piranha 2, but he kind of disowns that because that film was sort of taken away from him and was a real, it is his first credited feature. But
first one of his.
Yeah, the one that's a real Cameron film.
As well,
put it together himself.
But having, I'm blanking on her name, Sarah Connor. Oh, God. Anyway.
What?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
My brain just broke.
Yeah.
As soon as you press cut on the
I
recording,
remember what it is. It's in my mind. I can even see it on the screen, but I can't think. She came on, she was actually she was an actress. You could tell she was a serious actress because they showed the behind the scenes stuff and her talking about it, which I found really interesting. As we would being in industry as well. But she's I didn't know what I was really in for with this. I was okay, I guess I'm in. The writing's pretty good with the script, but I have no idea how they're going to pull this off because I don't think they had much of a budget to do the special effects and everything. And she's well, clearly it worked out, kind of thing. But so that was pretty cool to see that. You see James Cameron so young with a beard and flowing hair, and they're on the back of the truck shooting the thing. It's pretty cool to see that. And then it goes into his politics side of thing when he was governor, which I found very interesting as well because I didn't know a lot of the stuff that he was dealing with there and how he approached it. It was just kind of cool to see him as a personality and what he did, how he approached what he was doing and his mindset to get there. There's some like rough thing. They play back an interview that he did of when he was younger and clearly really cocky and all the rest of it. And it just his mindset, and like his father passed away.
Yeah.
And his brother as well. And like, he's just like, it doesn't even affect me. Like, I don't even think about it. Like it's back in the past. Like I'm just, you know, like, and then they show, and then they go move to him, like being interviewed, like now, like just kind of sound like, I did it. You know, like, it's like, it's just, you're in the mindset of a performer, an absolute badass that went for his dreams, you know, and it's very interesting to see that on like, you know, your own path that you're on, to see how he navigated that world, and you pull little things out, you know, as you got to do to try and, you know, put it to your life to try and work it out too, what's best for you. So I found it very interesting. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm keen to check it out.
I don't know how other people, you know, a lot of people, like I was with my mate Sasha last night, he's an actor. He's my trainer as well, and he's into bodybuilding hardcore. So he's in Jeremy's new film, actually, Western Culture. Yeah. Cool. So, but he loves, like, idolizes Arnie. Yeah. And so does Victor, actually. He's one of the leads in Western. Like, that's, I know those guys from down the coast, but they idolize them as bodybuilders, you know, and they're really into it. But even, he said he was watching, there's even some stuff that he didn't know. But obviously they know a lot about the backstory, so it might not be as interesting to someone that knows a lot of that stuff, you know, and it may feel fabricated, but it seemed pretty real, you know, like it wasn't, you know, you watch those things and you know they're saying the stuff to say the stuff, and maybe half it's scripted or whatever. Yeah. I don't think a lot of that was, you know, and like he had a lot of relationships break down, you know. I didn't know he was married to a Kennedy. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, this kind of adds things. Now I get, you know, and you're putting it together as you go. Very interesting. I think it's well worth a watch. It's not hugely, it's only 3 episodes, so it's like whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm keen to see it. Linda Hamilton played Sarah Connor.
Okay, there we go.
It came to me.
You're holding on to that the whole time I was talking.
I got this. But what I think is interesting about his story, and I'd be quite keen to see it, is he's a perfect example of how different the path to creative success is for different people. You know, no one could look at Arnie's career and go, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to start as a bodybuilder and I'm going to do this and like, it just shows what a tangled and you know, the path. Yeah. It's such a, you know, who knows how it's going to work out, meeting this person at the right time, auditioning for that right film at the right time. You know, you just can't predict it. You can't plan for it. He's one of the ultimate examples. And even like listening to conventional advice of like, Schwarzenegger is a difficult to pronounce name, so change your name. He changed it for a while, and then what's his? I can't remember how he's credited, but he appears in the Robert Altman film, The Long Goodbye, and he's like a heavy in that. And I don't think he has any dialogue, but he's credited as something like Arnold Sampson or something. Like, he's taken a really like easy name, and then clearly went, actually no, drop that. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like has stuck with his name. But like you can see how in that early part of his career, he's like trying to define himself in a particular way. Certain things like his accent, you would think that's like, oh, he'll never be a big star with that accent.
Well, that's what he got told constantly.
Yeah. But it just goes to show that no one knows anything. The advice is, there's no any one true piece of advice. There's a story I tell anyone that knows me is probably sick to death of me telling this story, but I'll repeat it again because it's such a good one. It's not my story. It's Robert Zemeckis tells this story. So the director of Back to the Future and Forrest Gump and some of the greatest films of all time. When he finished film school, at that time, George Lucas took any of the graduating film school students and would watch their short film and then give them like a 10-minute meeting to like have a chat and sort of help, you know, get them going. This is like end of the 70s, early 80s. And Zemeckis goes up to Lucas's office, and Lucas has seen his short film, and Zemeckis sits down and Lucas says, so you want to be a big time filmmaker, huh? And Robert Zemeckis says to Lucas, yeah, George, how do I do it? And George pauses for dramatic effect and just says, somehow. And it's so true. It's just somehow you will. Like you can't really say, all right, you go here and you work there and you take that job. And it's a different somehow for everybody, which was the encouraging thing as we were making Space Time, and certainly when we felt like we might be lost in the woods in our post-production. We just knew that, well, this is just our somehow. We're just on our path, and where somebody else might be like, oh, you don't want to do a big effects film for your first film. It's like, no, I think that's good advice and worth thinking about. And, for us, this was our somehow. Our challenges were these. Your challenges are a different set. Another filmmaker's will be different again. Everybody has their path they've got to follow and navigate in their unique way. And hopefully they get to the end, and hopefully they still are in love with the process, and that it all works out. And in most cases, it does seem to. It seems like, again, talking about success is relative to everybody. Not everyone's going to be a international household name like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but creative success, creative fulfillment, knowing that you've given it your best and made something that you are proud of. That's pretty cool.
Fulfillment. That's the word. That's it. But it's a great watch. So check it out. But that's a very good. I like that story. Just somehow. That's what I mean when people like say, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you got to." I mean, I've probably said things as well, but I'm only speaking from my own experience of what I've ran into, and hope that helps people, and that's all I can really do. And especially with the podcast, you're thinking live in the moment as well. You're not actually, you may change your idea. Like situations happen a week from now that you're like, oh, okay, maybe, it is what it is, but you're making your own path with it, right? And you stay honest, stay true to what you're doing, and just keep pushing forward, right? Obstacles are always going to happen. People are always going to say you can't do something. It just makes you want to do it even more.
It does. Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like it helps you understand if you're like you get to, like, when someone says, oh, you shouldn't do it this way, even if you ignore the advice, it is good to at least reflect, okay, why do they say that? What are the reasons that people say that the advice is to do this and not that? Just to know that you're making the decision to go against the conventional wisdom, which, as I say, like, for a long time, the advice with independent films is don't shoot at night, don't do action scenes, don't have vehicles, like don't do any of that stuff. And I feel like I consistently see now independent films saying, heck no, we're doing this stuff because we're a movie, we're doing what makes it best. We don't want to just be, two people in a lounge room talking. Not that those aren't great. It isn't a great way for a film, but if the story is saying, no, we really want to be out at night with a car chase, you got to do it. You got to put it in there. You got to do what best serves the story and tells it.
Exactly. And that's pretty good advice to take from someone that's just completed their first debut feature film.
But if we're making one point, it's don't listen to my advice unless you want to. Well, finding your own somehow. That's really advice.
No, I really like that. So, I mean, so the film's finished. It's coming soon. Watch the space. People can check it out. Spacetimemovie.com.au.
No AU, just .com. Spacetimemovie.com. Yes.
Instagram page, Spacetime Movie.
Yep. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they're all Spacetime Movie. You can check out our little tease video that's out at the moment, and there'll be more coming very soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you stay creative. You're doing little things in the background. Are you doing TVCs and things like that? So that's how you guys are sort of.
That's how we keep the lights on.
Are you doing it full time? Is that? Well done. That's a huge accomplishment just there.
Yeah, I mean, not the whole time. Like I've definitely. I think everybody has day jobs over the years. I've worked in cinemas and video stores and all that over the course of my life. I think I did work full time as a director editor for maybe 5 or 6 years, and I found very quickly that I was exhausted, essentially creatively, because I was putting it all into that, and so had to find my own balance between like work that doesn't completely like leave you exhausted to be able to work on your own things. So I'm very lucky now, though, that I've been able to make Space Time and just corporate and TVC production and things like that my full-time job without it overtaking or spending my because your mental power for like if you've edited all day on a commercial and then you go home to edit your movie, you got nothing left in the tank.
Last thing you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's enormous value to finding a day job that allows you to sort of, if you can expend your creative choices on your own project and then your physical energy on a day job, whatever it is, I think that can, in many cases, be the best way to do it. Very, very happily at this point, able to just be doing filmmaking for now. But who knows? That might change again. You never know the way this industry goes.
Yeah. It's a landscape that's continually changing, and we're constantly finding our somehow.
Definitely, exactly.
And so, is that Mohawk Films? Was that
Mohworks? Everyone says Mohawk.
I don't know why I said Mohawk.
No, everyone does. So MOH, my initials, Michael O'Halloran, and so all through primary school, my nickname was Mo, and so when I started making films as an 8-year-old, I came up with Mohworks, which is basically just me going, DreamWorks, Mohworks, like take my name and put it on the front. And so all through school, I was making short films with my friends, Indiana Jones and Star Wars and James Bond ripoffs, and then just kept it. But yes, everybody always goes Mohawks, and I go, no, Mohworks. So anyway, one day it's, I don't mind it. It's Justin made me got a Christmas gift one year, a coffee mug that is the Mohworks Films logo changed to say Mohawks Films. Cool. So we've embraced the joke.
That's hilarious.
But no, Mohworks, because Michael O'Halloran works. That's my...
That's the slogan.
That's the slogan, yeah.
I mean, did you go to film school and stuff here? Or how did you,
I went to QT.
We could have done a whole... I know I'm bringing this up at the end of the podcast, but I'm just...
We're talking about time travel films. We're going back to the start to end. I studied at QT. I did the film and television degree there, which was interesting. It was... I do think the most valuable thing I got out of studying film was I met Adam. We met like in the first week, probably first day, and just immediately clicked and were there wanting to make the same movies, wanting to write the same stuff, and very quickly realized our creative sensibilities were aligned. I think that it's so valuable to be around other people trying to do the same thing. And anyone who's wondering whether they should study film or not, that wants to be a filmmaker, I would say yes, in that it's not necessarily where you're going to go to learn how to make a movie, but you are going to be around other people trying to make stuff. And the best way to learn is to just be doing it, getting on sets, getting your hands dirty. And that's how you're going to do it. Because everybody's making their short films. All your assignments are little 1-minute shorts and 3-minute shorts and stuff. And you'll really learn how to do it just by being there and doing it. The best way really to learn, though, is watch movies. Watch lots of movies. That's the ultimate course in how to make a movie, is to watch it and then try and think about how they did it. Read the script, watch the behind the scenes, listen to interviews. That's the best way to figure out how to do it. Because again, it's a somehow. There isn't a set. You can't teach it necessarily as start with a wide shot, then cut to a close up, then cut. It's always different.
It's art. It's all about feel,
exactly. So I think there's huge value to studying, and I got a lot out of my course. But ultimately the most valuable thing when it comes to this is hands-on doing it and being around other people that are doing it.
I would agree with the same thing with acting and everything else as well. Yeah. I mean, you can do as much as you want in front of a little camera or whatever, but the hands-on stuff is the fun, and where you really take huge leaps and bounds as a performer or, as a person, and what you are capable of and what you can tap into on a bigger project always helps, right?
Absolutely.
That's it. Find you somehow and get in there and get after it.
That's it. Exactly.
It's a great way to end.
Perfect ending.
Thanks a lot for coming on,
pleasure.
mate. It's
Thank
been
you for
awesome
having
to
me,
talk to you.
It's been a pleasure. It really has. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to it. Space Time coming soon, and check it out, guys. Get on the socials, have a look at the teaser trailer. We'll put it up there through the episode, and we'll have all the links to the websites and everything on there. So watch the space. He's doing big things. And thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right, guys. It's us. We're out.